Have you ever found yourself in a tailspin when somebody gives you feedback on something you could have done better? Getting angry with yourself for not being one step ahead and predicting what that feedback could have been? Or that your accomplishments could be attributed to factors outside yourself, your hard work, or your abilities. Things like luck, chance, appearance. Well, welcome to the human experience. Today we're going to touch on the complexities related to imposter syndrome, including the different imposter types and tips on how to overcome it with time. We're excited to get into this with you. Welcome to Tell Me More and Then Some.
I'm Alina.
And I'm Angeline.
Join us as we dive deep into the topics that fuel our conscious evolution and keep us learning as students of life.
We invite you to come along and share the ride. We hope you're empowered to learn and grow into the best and most authentic version of yourself. We're so happy you're here. Let's go. Imposter syndrome. Oh, imposter syndrome. We've all heard of it, but what is it? Imposter syndrome, which is also commonly termed imposter phenomenon, fraud syndrome, and imposterism, is not an official psychiatric diagnosis in the DSM. It is a complex psychological pattern that can not only be anxiety-provoking and isolating, but it can also hold us back from going after our goals and our ambitions. People who struggle with imposter syndrome believe that they're undeserving of their achievements and the high esteem in which they are in fact generally held. They feel that they aren't as competent or intelligent as others might think, and that soon enough, people will discover the truth about them or find them out.
It was first identified in 1978 by Suzanne Imes and Pauline Rose Clance, who conducted an observation first among successful and high-achieving women and other marginalized groups such as women of color. However, subsequent studies have shown that gender is not as significant of a factor and that up to 82% of the population has experienced imposter syndrome. 82%.
That's a lot.
It's safe to assume that in high-performing populations, this number is on the higher end. That's because there are more opportunities to compare yourself to your higher-achieving peers, whether from your current role, your neighbors, or your alumni populations. The consequence of this phenomenon is that it can drain relationships. It's difficult to connect with colleagues and people when you have walls up because you're scared of being quote unquote found out. It's made even worse because most people feel that they are the only one who feels this way. It's a very isolating feeling. Mm-hmm. Some common characteristics of imposter syndrome include self-doubt, sabotaging your own success, undervaluing your contributions, low self-esteem, fear of failure, overworking, not accepting recognition for your achievements, and comparing yourself to others.
I can relate to a lot of those.
Sure.
And fun fact, something I didn't know was that there are 5 different types of imposters. Dr. Valerie Young, who's the co-founder of Imposter Syndrome Institute, which, yes, that's a thing, conducted research with hundreds of thousands of people from a wide range of occupations and in all phases of their careers. And here are the 5 unique types of imposters.
The first type is the perfectionist. I need to make sure I deliver perfect performance 100% of the time. There is no room for error. Perfectionists focus on how something is done, how the work is conducted, and how it turns out. One minor flaw in an otherwise stellar performance, or 99 out of 100, equals failure and shame. Want to give our listeners an example, Ange?
Yeah. So here an example could be you give a presentation and afterwards your manager tells you that one of the pieces of data that you presented was inaccurate. Instead of seeing that as a learning opportunity and asking how they would have gone about it differently, you beat yourself up silently and allow it to hinder your show up and your confidence. I think this is something I feel like if I had to guess, this might be the most common type of imposter perfectionist, but who knows? Let's move on to the next one.
The expert. I have to know everything there is to know that is expected of me. I should never feel like I could have prepared better. The expert is the knowledge version of the perfectionist. So the primary concern here is on what and how much you know or can do, because you expect to know everything. Even a minor lack of knowledge brings failure and shame.
Yeah. This one I would mostly see in leaders. So, if one of their team members in a meeting asks them a question, and rather, if they don't know the answer, rather than saying, I don't know, or, I will get back to you on that, they can either make up an incorrect answer or they'll get defensive, something like, well, that's not relevant to this conversation. And in a way, they feel shame because they didn't know the answer to the question that they should have known, quote unquote.
Mm.
So, yeah, going to the next one.
The third type is the soloist. I don't need anyone's help, and true competence means accomplishing my achievements on my own. Asking for help is a sign of weakness. The soloist cares mostly about who completes the task because they think that they should be able to do it all on their own. Needing help, tutoring, or coaching is a sign of failure that evokes shame.
So a common one here is a new parent who is overwhelmed by all the things, and they can use the help of, let's say, several parents that they respect and admire for a pep talk or asking them questions they don't know the answers to, or even as simple as asking a friend, hey, can you watch my child so I can go to a yoga class or do something for myself? These individuals could be heard saying things like, I did it all by myself. I raised this kid all on my own, with a sense of pride, even if it's bearing them to get through it all on their own. That's what the soloist could look like in real life.
The fourth is the natural genius. I have to get things right the first time and know everything. I need to know absolutely everything in order to be able to do this. So if I were actually competent, it should come quickly and easily to me. So the natural genius also cares about the how and when accomplishments happen. But for you, competence is measured in terms of ease and speed. The fact that you have to struggle to master a subject or skill, or that you're not able to bang out your masterpiece on the first try, equals failure, which evokes shame.
Feels like shame is a big part of all of this. But an example of the natural genius is my husband. So if, like the dishwasher breaks and he confidently goes to try and fix it and isn't able to get it on his own because he thinks he should be able to, let's say it's maybe based on gender norms, he gets really frustrated with himself. And if you couple this with the soloist, and if I ask him to either hire someone or, hey, let's watch a YouTube video, that triggers him into a shame and incompetence spiral because he feels like he should have known how to do it on his own.
And last but definitely not least, the superhuman. People need to see that I'm able to handle everything: work, school, parenting, being a perfect partner, etc. Otherwise, I'm not worthy. This type measures competence based on how many roles you can both juggle and excel in. So falling short in any role as a parent, as a partner, on the home front, as a friend or a volunteer, all evoke shame because you feel you should be able to handle it all perfectly and with ease.
Yeah. And for this one, I would envision, those people that you're having a conversation with and they relish in saying things like, or hearing things like, I don't know how you do it all, girl. Like, people look at them and they're just in awe of them being the perfect everything, quote unquote, when internally they're actually falling apart. And ultimately, these people end up burnt out if they're not excelling in every role that they have in their lives. Because to be honest, we can't be 100% in everything. And sometimes something has to give. And I really empathize with this type.
Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? And I mean, I'm going to say you have, because I feel like,
I'm in that 82%.
Yeah, I feel like we all have, or or continue to in some way, shape, or form. So,
Absolutely.
or in different points of our lives. But which type? And I know it's hard because some of them feel like they bleed into the other.
They do.
But is there a type that resonates the most with you?
I don't know which type this falls into, but I know with when I was at business school, it all really came to a head for me. I didn't expect it because I was around so many high achieving and ambitious people that came from many different backgrounds. And me coming from an immigrant family where neither of my parents went to college, I often felt like I don't belong here, or, it's just not in the cards for me to be as successful as these people that have come from very different backgrounds than I have. And so it felt very isolating. And even though I deserved to be there, I had the scores, I had the experience, I had the interview, like all of that made me deserving of being there. And still, for some reason, it felt really like there was a fluke, or the reason I got in was because I was schmoozing with the interviewers and the admissions director, and that's not true. So that experience was really, it threw me for a loop. And I know that in one of my interviews for a big consulting firm, I bombed it because I think there was a belief and inside somewhere that I didn't deserve it, or I wasn't meant to have it like the others. That was really hard.
Yeah, that must have been really hard.
Yeah. And I know you could relate to this too.
Absolutely.
But any other experiences that you want to share?
I feel like career in school, those must be big ones. Like, I don't know as a parent, I certainly know parents where I see that and they voice it. They voice it. They feel like they're constantly, I don't know, having to like perform or keep up, or for me personally, I would say it's come through school and work. And probably grad school was the biggest for me because, I went to public schools my whole life. And so I never really felt like, oh, people are smarter than me, or I kind of just fit in. And then when I went to a very competitive graduate school, I definitely thought that there was a mistake. I was like, somebody made a mistake. It's crazy if you think back. Like, now that I think back, I'm like, no, I had to take an entrance exam. Yep. I had to get good grades. I had to write, I had to do a lot of things. And so to be there. So just thinking back that like I fooled somebody or I fooled the system, like it's crazy, right? Yeah. And then getting through it and getting great grades.
Yes.
Like you did all of that. But the whole time I was just like, there was a mistake. I don't belong here. And I know that there were many others that felt the same way. And then, even, in certain roles throughout my career, I was like, oh gosh, I just got to fake it till I make it. Got to fake it till I make it. And I think a lot of us do that.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, another one just came to mind. I don't know which one this is.
Are you sorry?
I don't know why I'm sorry, actually. Thank you for calling that out. It's the superhuman. When my mom was really sick, I remember starting a new job and getting compliments from my boss and saying, you are doing an amazing job at work. And I know that you're taking care of your mother, who was very close to passing away. And I got so much pride from that because I told myself, wow, like you're going to visit your mom on the weekends. You're working this demanding job and you're doing a badass job doing that. You're still friends with people. I had a surprise birthday party for a friend of mine that I helped organize. And obviously now that has so many repercussions on my nervous system. I wasn't well. And when I now see others, like let's say people I work with that are struggling with things outside of work, I'm trying to have that empathy of like, just because I poured myself into everything and drove myself to the ground trying to do a good job doesn't mean that that was a healthy way. So if anything, I applaud people that set boundaries and say, you know what? I'm not going to be an excelling practitioner in my job right now because my parent is ill and I'm taking care of 2 kids or whatever it is. So that just came to mind for me.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because I was having dinner with a few girlfriends a couple weeks ago, and I thought of our burnout episode because I could just tell one of my dear friends was just fried. Like her brain, she's got a very demanding career. She's got kids. She has a partner. She has an aging father. Family, like so much happening, and I just kept saying to her, like, you cannot do it all. You don't have to do it all. You know that, right? Like, you're not less than, or because you can't be a good partner right now. You're not less than because you can't be a good daughter right now. Like, you can do great things. You just can't do all of them.
Yes.
At the same time. And so wasn't that like a Sex and the City quote from Miranda?
Potentially.
You can have it all, just not all at the same time or something like that.
Oh, I love that.
But anyhow,
That's great.
I saw that, and I think recognizing it helps. Like just saying like, you don't, like, it's okay that you are not thriving in everything. But again, I think it's easier said than done because so many of us do feel like we're an imposter in a certain role that we're supposed to be playing and we're not playing.
Yeah. And how beautiful is it that she has a friend that called that out? I think that's great to try to give your loved ones permission to not be superhuman and be able to do it all, because it really does have long-term effects.
Yeah. And in the workplace, I think, especially if you're in a leadership role, letting your team know, right, that it's okay to make mistakes. I mean, I certainly have perfectionists on my team, and it's really hard for them to, acknowledge certain things. And so I think as leaders or even as colleagues, just like letting your peers know, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be human. It's okay to not know what you're doing.
Yes.
So
I love that. I love when, as leaders, they say things like, I don't know. I actually don't know, because that is okay. And I think even with perfectionists on your team, the more you call errors out, the more you're perpetuating the perfectionist cycle, that vicious cycle that they're in, because it just continues to confirm the story that they're meant to be perfect in everything they do. So that's something I'm learning on how to give feedback, because I used to point out every little thing as if I am perfect, as if I don't have errors. And I noticed that the less I point out the small things, the better performance you get out of your team, right? Because it's okay. Like, they'll notice it. You just don't have to always call it out. That was something a coach told me.
I choose my battles for sure.
Choose your battles, man.
Yeah. Like, is this really going to have a huge impact?
Yes. Yes. Like, they know that great is spelled Great. You don't have to say it. That's not Grate.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, we know it's prevalent everywhere. So now we're going to go into a few of the ways that you can try to overcome or face the imposter feelings. And no matter which one you relate to, it really starts with acknowledging that it's present and that every single person will experience self-doubt and insecurity at times in their lives. So one of the first things we can do is identifying our triggers. So some triggers may include starting a new job, getting a promotion, receiving recognition for your work, and being asked to speak in public. The recognition one is interesting because people will say things like, oh, that was because of XYZ, or I've done this before, instead of just saying, thank you, I'm proud of that work. Next, you should nurture your self-confidence. So Practicing things like self-forgiveness and self-acceptance can help you be your most compassionate advocate, letting go of those unrealistic expectations that you place on yourself and give yourself permission to make mistakes and to not be perfect. When we believe in our abilities, we become more resilient to criticism and less likely to give up on pursuing our goals.
You know, I'm just thinking about the triggers,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, oh my God, those are all triggers for me.
Mm-hmm.
So like starting a new job, wow.
Yes.
I mean, if you're human, you're going to experience imposter syndrome in a new role. You just are.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet that over 90% of people experience that.
I'm on board with that.
I'm making that number up, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, if you're human, you're going to experience that. No matter how competent and how well-deserving, we're not saying that the people aren't well-deserving, but it's new.
Yes.
Getting a promotion, same thing. Like, do I really deserve it?
Huge.
You know, although some people might be like, it's a long time coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see that one. Recognition for your work. I was even thinking of when you said about compliments. I remember many years ago, I would do this thing, and I think I just learned it from like my family and upbringing. Like when somebody would give me a compliment, I would try to minimize the compliment
Mm-hmm.
and say, oh, and it could be like physical too. Like
yeah.
your hair looks great, or, oh, I love that shirt. Oh, this thing, it's so old. It was $5.
Yes.
Why is that relevant? It's
I
still
don't
a
know.
beautiful shirt, right? Or your hair looks great. Oh, I haven't washed it in forever. Well, it still looks great.
Yes.
So just say thank you and leave it
Yeah.
at that. Thank you. Right?
It's really hard.
And
Yeah.
man, that took me years because
Yeah.
that is a form of imposter syndrome.
Right.
Right? Because
Oh yeah.
you're thinking, oh, you know, it only looks this good because of X, Y, and Z, or maybe they don't have their glasses on, or
Absolutely. It's a fluke.
it's
right?
a fluke. Like, it's just crazy to
Yeah.
think of it from that lens. And I've personally definitely gotten better with that. And then public speaking, forget
it.
about it.
I'm glad we're doing a podcast.
I mean, forget about it, especially
it.
if you're shy or
Oof.
an introvert or. That is a tough one, man.
That's a big one. I mean, I think they say like the biggest fear of most people is public speaking,
Yeah.
even over death.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's a
tough one.
lot of fear of judgment and people, you know, fear of people saying like, who are you to talk about this topic? Right. So yeah, I'm not surprised by
What would
these.
you say your biggest trigger is from
Oof.
the ones that you mentioned?
Okay. Public speaking, let's just put that to the side
Yeah.
because that one's always going to be. I would say actually I can really relate to the getting a promotion, especially when you're considered a leader in a leadership role. It's something that I'm not used to. And I've had this underlying belief that as a leader, I'm getting better at this, that as a leader, I need to know everything and I need to not make mistakes because I have to serve as a good example to my team. So I've really struggled over the last year or so in getting into that mindset that it's not about being perfect. It's about developing people, nurturing their confidence, and showing up knowing that I deserved this role and that I'm good at my job.
Mm.
I'm not perfect at it, but I do a good job. And so really for me now, I'm learning to cultivate leadership skills because the promotion really threw me of what? Like I used to be an individual contributor and I know what I had to do. And it's just a different arena with being in a leadership role, like you had said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, yeah, that one currently resonates hard for me.
Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome. What's the next thing we can do?
Yeah, it's acknowledging your accomplishments. Mm-hmm. And that starts with self-awareness. So it's so hard because most of us are not living mindful, present lives.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some of you are, but we're either, ruminating on the past or thinking about the future. So taking stock and ownership of our achievements can help shift our focus away from our perceived shortcomings and instead on our strengths and abilities. It can also help us to see how far we've come. We all have our own journey and we're all good at different things. So I think, how boring would it be if we were all the same and had the same strengths?
Oh, no.
God, I'd be bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, our society would certainly be in a state of disarray.
Yes.
And then take a social media break. You've probably heard this before, but one of the primary causes of imposter syndrome in this day and age is social media. I'm so thankful that I grew up with no social media.
Here.
So grateful. I really do feel for especially the younger generation. But, it just creates this idealized world that will make you feel like you are constantly falling short. Though it may be changing, social media often showcases the highlight reel of people's lives. Taking a break can be so powerful in creating space for yourself to focus on your own achievements rather than what others are doing, even if it's, a few days at a time.
Oh, that's hard.
Yeah. Is it?
It's hard for me. It really is a form of escape. And ironically, it doesn't make me feel great. But I try to fool my algorithm by getting things that do make me feel good. But yeah, this is a really hard one.
Yeah.
And what do they say? Comparison is a thief of joy. I know that that's a very commonly used phrase, but it's so true. And how hard is it to be present when you're looking at other people's lives and their highlight reels, not just their lives? So I think this one is a huge one.
I read the other day that there's a cafe in, God, was it New York? Somewhere on the East Coast. But it's a cafe that has no Wi-Fi.
What?
Yeah. And it's like a cafe bookstore. So most people are reading something.
Wow.
Or reading something.
Or being present.
Or talking to one another. I don't think a lot of people were talking, but yeah, just being present, but no laptops. Like, can you imagine walking into a cafe with no laptops or no cell phones?
No.
Isn't that cool?
It's like you're naked.
We should make this
but that's really
go
cool.
viral.
We should. Let's go. Let's send it to everybody.
Cafes with no Wi-Fi.
I love that.
So what do you do?
Oh man. Obviously this is all a work in progress, but therapy has really helped me with just self-awareness, because I'll bring specific examples to my sessions of when I begin to feel like an imposter. And honestly, for me, it's mostly comparing myself to others, whether it's a colleague that's at my level, whether it's somebody on social media influencer that has a great relationship or a beautiful home, or a car, whatever it is. I'm learning to be mindful of how different we all are, and that we could be seeing someone's chapter 8 of their journey when we're only at chapter 1. That was one thing that my therapist had said to me that really resonated, especially because, we're different in where we come from, the privilege that some of us have had over others. It's just not fair to compare yourself to other people. We do not know where they come from. And so that's a big one. And then I do want to mention a book called Mindsets, and it's by a Stanford researcher, Carol Dweck, where she identified 2 mindsets that were foundational to academic success of children. And you guys might have heard of the growth and fixed mindset. So according to her, individuals can be placed on a continuum according to their implicit views of where ability comes from. So some believe their success is based on innate ability, and those are the people that are said to have a fixed theory of intelligence. And others who believe their success is based on hard work, learning, training, are said to have a growth or an incremental theory of intelligence. So, if I say things like, I'm not great at this right now, but I'm going to get better, versus I'm just not good at math, and just letting it be, that's a fixed mindset. And, you know, if you grew up in a US public school before the 90s, like we have, the fixed mindset signals were everywhere. IQ tests, learning tracks based on past performance, segregating the vocational and the academic kids. So I think it's something that we're becoming more and more aware of. But I don't know. That book, I think, has a lot of great content around mindset. And I think that's a big one when you're facing imposter syndrome. I might have just talked a lot and lost you.
Not at all.
Okay, good. How about you?
I can listen to you for days.
Oh, thank you. What about you?
I think just,
Alina?
yeah, similar to you, you know, being mindful, being self-aware. It is hard. I think I personally remind myself, and I say this to, you know, colleagues or people on my team or whoever just needs to hear it, that like we all start somewhere, and we're all, and I guess I really dislike the term imposter, but we're all newbies all the time, right?
Yeah.
It's a new friendship. It's a new role. It's a new relationship with a parent that's aging. It's a new relationship. Like these things are new. Like I don't have a handbook on how to be a supportive daughter to an aging mother who has specific ailments.
Right.
I don't know how to navigate through that, right?
Yeah.
If you're a new mother, you can read all of the books on, you know, what to expect when you're expecting. But until you're in it, like I can't imagine what that must feel like day in and day out, trying to like not kill your child.
Of course.
And, you know, even as a pet owner, I read a couple of books on how to have a puppy and how to raise a puppy and all the things to do. And I'm still learning, right? I'm better than I was 6 years ago, but I'm constantly learning. And I do love the analogy of like a book, right? It's like, what are you on page 1 or are you on page 500 on this journey?
Yeah.
And the further you move along throughout that story and that book, the better you're going to be and the more confident you're going to feel, right, in your ability, and the less you'll feel like an imposter. But just being aware of those things, I think is really important.
Yeah,
So
I love that. It even can come down to like playing an instrument. You're not going to be great at first, right? So thank you for sharing that. So letting go of this idea of perfection and starting to embrace your failures as nothing more than a signal that you are growing and learning will be crucial as you continue to cultivate that self-awareness. And as uncomfortable as it is, embracing failure is truly a sign of growth instead of stagnance. So keep showing up and just know we're rooting for you.
Root.
Root.
You got this. Whatever it is, you got it. And
Yeah.
you're going to go through it. You're going to get through it. And you're going to go through it.
Absolutely.
And you're going to come out on top on the other end.
I
So
love that. Way to be motivational.
So as always, we like to end our episodes with asking, what is bringing us joy? Angeline?
Oh, joy. I think lately it's been allowing myself to not always have to be productive. And
What?
I know.
You?
I know. I'm telling you, man, I'm trying this on and I'm liking it. And
Productive queen.
everything from reading nonfiction only because I have to learn, or always cleaning, or doing something that's advancing my, I don't know, intelligence, career, whatever I think it's doing. But I've been really enjoying quiet time and quiet moments with my husband. And so an example of this was just the other day, we played chess, which is a pastime we used to love doing. And there was another time where I was reading a fiction book, like I've mentioned before, that I love. I'm loving fiction recently. And we were just both sitting on the couch reading. And there was really, I mean, you can argue that it's productive for your mind and all that, but I really am just enjoying slowing down. It's felt really nice. Thank you.
I just love this for you so much.
It's about time.
Well, in your defense, I know I'm being, silly here, but you really are that person that just loves to learn. I think we have that in common. And it's important to stop yourself and remind yourself that you don't have to have your calendar full of things to learn on a daily basis. And so I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate
I've
that.
never known you to read fiction, so I'm really proud of you.
I haven't either. Yeah.
And
thank you.
I love the chess piece. So.
Yes, chess is great. Chess is so fun. Okay. How about you? What's bringing you joy lately?
One word.
What's the word?
Caraillo. Girl, I'm going to make you one.
What is this?
I'm going to make you one.
What is it? Carajillo?
Caraillo.
Carajillo.
Caraillo. I think it originated in Spain. No, this is not a podcast promoting caraillo. But I think it originated in Spain, but it's like made its way to like Mexico and I'm hoping the US. But it's this liquor that I think is made in Spain. And it's made of like different herbs and spices. It's got like 43 different flavors. And it's like a sweet liqueur. And all you do is add it to coffee or espresso. So I add it to like a double shot of espresso on ice and shake or stir. That's it.
Yum.
That's it.
You have to make me one.
It is divine. It's like the American version of an espresso martini.
Okay.
But better.
But better. I mean, 43 what? 43 things?
43 things.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's so yummy.
Okay. Carajillo.
Caraillo. And I'm not a big drinker, so.
Ditto.
Just one of these. It's like a nice
treat.
It's a nice treat and like almost like an aperitif.
Okay.
But
all right.
Anyway.
Good to know.
Yeah. So let us know if you can relate to any of the 5 types of imposters and what you do to push past it. That's all we've got for you today. Join us next time on Tell Me More and Then Some.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please rate and review to help us reach more listeners.
To learn more, make sure to follow us on all the socials at More and Then Some Pod.
Join us for new episodes every Wednesday on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Until next time, stay curious, learn more, and talk about it.